I bet you that you would think it was him. Just listen to it. You go ahead and listen to it as I talk to my good friend Danny Money at CanesInSight.com. I'm telling you, his voice sounds like Tim Tebow to me, but I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. Danny Money, CanesInSight.com, owner, writer, contributor, podcast host, a little bit of everything over there at CanesInSight.com. My guest each and every Thursday here on the Sports Fix. Danny, good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Morning, Adam. How you doing?
And I'm doing well. Now, something we talked about last week, sort of the idea or the thought that Ray Armstrong was no longer going to be on this football team. There was no definitive answer last week. Well, this week we got a definitive answer. Ray Armstrong no longer a Miami Hurricane.
Yeah, and actually the word I'm hearing is that a lot of the pressure came from above, both at the administrative level and then also at the NCAA level. Now, last year, Ray took a picture of him with his girlfriend who works for a sports agency, and they were eating a plate of food that a college student probably couldn't afford. He got some hot water, had to miss a game, but ultimately it boiled over and he came back to the team. Now, again, this year he did the same thing, except instead of a plate of food, this was a hotel room that a college student couldn't afford, again, with the same girl who works for a sports agency. So, you know, it's really unfortunate. More so than hurting the team, I think it's just sad to see a guy that had so much promise and had put in so much time here, you know, just his career end on such a whimper. But as far as the team goes, I don't think he'll be as missed as his name might suggest.
No, and I was going to say that. I was going to ask, really. I mean, when you hear Ray Armstrong's off the team, it's like, oh, you know. But you know, to be honest with you, with the exception of a handful of plays, and maybe not even necessarily a bunch of big plays, I mean, how missed will Ray Armstrong be in the defensive backfield?
Well, I think the best thing he brought to the table. First, he was a senior, one of the few seniors on the team. He brings a certain amount of leadership. For all of his troubles, he's still respected on the team. He still has that respect as a big-time recruit, as a tough guy. So you lose some of that leadership. I'd heard he was working really hard in the offseason, so it's disappointing in that regard. But really, if you look at the way he complimented Von Telemark, who's the other safety, they were both bigger safeties, kind of slow, and that lack of speed really hurt UM at times in that last level there of the defense. So you're going to replace Ray Armstrong most likely with Casey Rogers, who's a converted cornerback from Texas. He's more in the 4.5 range, where Ray was probably in the 4.7 range. So you increase your speed and maybe complement Von Telemark, your other safety, a little better.
Now, what's the future hold for Ray Armstrong? I know the supplemental draft was like a week ago, so unfortunately for him, and what was he in, basically football purgatory right now?
Well, I'd expect him to kind of have a similar landing to what you saw with Janoris Jenkins last year up in Gainesville, you know, going to a SCS school or smaller school, playing this year. He has a full release from the university, so he can go basically wherever he wants as far as the university is concerned. I think he'll go to a school like South Alabama, play, and then hopefully move on to the next level. But, you know, unlike Janoris Jenkins, he doesn't have that great film at the University of Miami that teams can look to and say, yeah, this guy's going to be a great pro. So, you know, it's going to be an uphill climb for him. I hope for his sake that he's moved to the position of outside linebacker. We've talked about it. I think that's his best chance for success. But,
now, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There's another guy that sort of, and I don't say has found himself in the doghouse, but unfortunately for him, there are stories about him not doing what he needs to do and showing up late. How about Sean Charles Henderson? Is he a guy who's sort of maybe out of the doghouse? I know he showed up like a day late. Some people said not that big a deal. Is he a guy that right now is in good standing with Al Golden?
Well, like you said, he showed up a day late coming back he's from Minnesota. So when everybody came back from the break, he was a day late coming back. And, you know, by itself, that's not really a big deal. But you couple that with everything that has happened to him in the past as far as, you know, suspensions for marijuana, violations of team rules. You know, it's a pattern that's developing. Now, again, like with Ray, the sad thing is that all you've heard about Chantrell the past few months is good things, working hard in the weight room, you know, showing focus and really kind of trying to take his game to the next level. I don't think he's in as hot water as Ray. I think we'll see him stick around, although there's still rumors that he might be dismissed. I don't see that happening, although it is possible. But he's in great shape. He's playing that right tackle position. He still has some lingering effects from his back and hip injuries. It doesn't let him play as well on the left side, which is what many had pegged him as the future blindside protector. He's working at the right. he should have that starting right tackle job, and he's physically ready to have a great year. We'll see if the mental side can catch up.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, my guest here on the Sports Fix, talking Miami Hurricane football as we get inch closer and closer to the season getting kicked off. Now, one of the big questions for Miami is, what about the NCAA? What are they going to do? I don't know that anybody should put any credence into what Billy Corbin is tweeting out there. But, I mean, is there maybe any truth to the fact that we may be getting pretty close to a ruling by the NCAA?
Well, first they're going to send out the notice of allegations before any ruling, and then that's going to be deliberated. So that's the first step, and that hasn't happened yet. From what I understand, the basketball side of the investigation is really what's taking up the NCAA's time at the moment. They had been conducting interviews. They were on campus conducting a few interviews a few months ago. Randy Shannon was recently interviewed. So I think the football side might be close to wrapping up, but the basketball investigation might carry on a little longer. And then, of course, you have to wait for the notice of allegations, and then that will be deliberated and decided upon. So all in all, I'd be surprised if something comes down before signing day in February. And for UN, that's probably for the best, because they can wrap up this class without having to deal with the sanctions, and then have a jump start on the next class if the sanctions come down, say in March, and kind of mitigating the damage from that, and really trying to establish those relationships early in the class of 2014.
Well, let's jump over to the recruiting side of things, where Miami has a commitment from a quarterback in Kevin Olsen. He's out at the Elite 11 quarterback camp, which is a pretty prestigious thing for any high school quarterback to be a part of. What are the early reports on how he's doing out there?
Early reports are great. He was singled out by Tom Luganville of ESPN. Is really performing well. He's a very fundamentally sound quarterback, very well schooled. Obviously, his dad being a coach, so he's comfortable in that camp setting. He's supposedly spinning the ball well. And the one thing I keep hearing about Olsen, and just from what I've seen from him, the limited times I've been able to see him interact with others, is he's a very confident kid. He's not awed by anything. His dad has been the head coach of the biggest program in his area since he was a little kid. He's seen his brothers go on to stardom. He's been groomed as sort of this star quarterback from an early age. So he's very comfortable in his skin, very comfortable in his role. I think that's really going to help him when he goes down to Miami. He's not going to be awed by the position of Miami quarterback. He's going to feel almost like he's been groomed for it since an early age. So I think that's his best advantage. And from what I hear about the Elite 11 camp, he's projecting that kind of confidence even among other talented quarterbacks.
Now, when Miami was at their peak, if Miami wanted a recruit out of the Tri-County area in South Florida, it was a wrap. I mean, really, very rarely would they lose a guy that they truly wanted out of that area. I think there's a guy down there in Matthew Thomas, who's a defensive player from Booker T. Washington. I mean, who looks like he's got some interest in places like Alabama, USC, obviously Miami as well, maybe Florida State. What's the early read on him? Because he could be as important a recruit for Miami as there's been over the last couple of years.
Well, he's going to be the marquee guy all the way up to signing day. He'll be the person who will swing the tide of the class, at least as far as perception goes. He'll be like the Tracy Howard. He'll be the guy people are talking about. He kind of likes the attention. He's quiet. He doesn't do a lot of interviews, but I get the impression from him that he's going to drag out the process. He has all the great schools after him, Alabama, Florida State, like you mentioned. So it's going to be hotly contested. In my opinion, he's probably the best player in the state. 6'6", can rush the passer, can play a linebacker, can even cover. He was at the opening up in Oregon, the Nike camp, and he was intercepting passes. I mean, he was one of the best covers linebackers there, even though he's 6'6" with a big frame. So just a very special player. I think ultimately, after all the drama passes, he will be a Miami Hurricane. His teammate Denver Kirkland, a 4-star offensive lineman from Booker T, is likely going to be a Hurricane commit in the months to come. His good friend Chad Thomas is an emerging star in the class of 2014. He loves the Canes. He's probably going to end up here down the road. So I think that hometown pressure might push Matthew Thomas to Miami, but it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, my guest here on the Sports Fix. And Danny, as always, my friend, really appreciate your time and the knowledge. I'm on vacation next week, man, so take the week off, and we'll catch up with you in a couple weeks.
All right, man. Have fun.
I definitely will. Definitely will. Danny Money, CanesInsight.com, my guest here on the Sports Fix. Coming up next, we'll turn our attention to SEC Media Days, where Mark McLeod is hanging out in Hoover, Alabama. We'll find out the latest from the happenings out there. That's next. You're listening to the Sports Fix on ESPN Radio. Find us online at ESPNGo1.com.